For about half an hour, all of heaven went silent. The book of Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 records the moment with unsettling brevity. The Lamb opens the seventh of the seven seals on the cosmic scroll. The reader of the Apocalypse is expecting the climax. Everything in the previous 7 chapters of John of Patmos' visionary text has been building toward the opening of the final seal. And when the final seal opens, nothing happens. Not for half a minute, not for half a day. The text specifies the exact duration of the cosmic pause, about half an hour. 30 minutes of complete silence across the entire heavenly realm. No singing, no thunder, no voice from the throne. Just suspended cosmic stillness as the entire visionary structure of the apocalypse pauses on the brink of what is about to come. For 2,000 years, theologians have argued about what happened in that silence. Nobody agrees. The early Christian commentators wrote treatises about it. The medieval monastics built liturgical practices around it. The modern apocalyptic scholarship has produced shelf after shelf of monographs trying to explain it. What actually happened in the 30 minutes of silence when the 7th seal was opened. Subscribe to the Buried Testament right now. The apocalyptic mysteries of the New Testament are being unearthed on this channel, week by week. What you are about to walk through is the most consequential half hour in the entire book of Revelation, and the implications of what happened in those 30 minutes of cosmic silence for the entire trajectory of the apocalyptic final judgment are larger than most modern readers of the apocalypse have ever been told. Subscribe so you do not miss what surfaces next. The structure of the apocalyptic vision the prophet John of Patmos recorded around the year 95 of the Christian era is built around 7 sequential seals on a cosmic scroll. 6 seals had already opened, the 4 horsemen. The souls of the executed Christian martyrs gathered beneath the heavenly altar crying out, "How long until the Lord judges and avenges their blood on those who dwell on the earth?" The sun blackened, the stars falling, the kings of the earth hiding in the rocks. An interlude in which the 144,000 of the tribes of Israel were sealed on their foreheads as protected witnesses. Then the Lamb reached for the 7th seal. The 5th seal in particular matters for what comes next. The text describes the prophet John of Patmos seeing in the visionary heavenly temple a great stone altar. Beneath the altar, in the space between the altar floor and the foundation stones, the souls of the executed Christian martyrs of the 1st century are gathered. They are not bodies. They are disembodied souls, preserved in the underspace of the cosmic altar. They cry out with a loud voice. They ask how long. They are given white robes. They are told to rest yet for a little season, until the full number of their fellow servants who should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. The 5th seal establishes that the prayers of the slain are accumulating beneath the heavenly altar. The 7th seal silence 3 chapters later is when those prayers are finally heard and answered. Chapter 8 verse 1 of the book of Revelation opens with the moment that has fascinated readers for 2,000 years. The Lamb opens the 7th seal, and there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. The original Greek text of the New Testament uses a single specific word to describe the duration of the cosmic silence. The word is ἡμιώριον. It is constructed from the Greek word hemi, meaning half, and the Greek word hora, meaning hour, combined into a single compound noun meaning a half-hour duration. The word ἡμιώριον is a New Testament hapax legomenon, occurring only here in the entire New Testament, and extremely rare in any surviving Greek literature outside of technical, astronomical, and geographical writing. The Greek geographer Strabo uses it twice in passing in his geography. Otherwise, the word is virtually absent from the Greek philosophical, historical, medical, and patristic Christian writings. The prophet John of Patmos chose to use a rare and technical Greek noun drawn from the precise vocabulary of astronomical timing to describe the duration of the silence in heaven after the opening of the 7th seal. The choice was not casual. The author of the Apocalypse needed a word for a precise duration that the normal religious and narrative Greek vocabulary could not capture. The duration was longer than a moment. The duration was shorter than an hour. The duration was approximately half an hour. The Greek ἡμιώριον is the precision word for exactly that interval. Drop the word silence in the comments if the Greek hapax legomenon of the 7th seal silence has rewired what you understood about the precision of the apocalyptic text, because the linguistic precision of the duration immediately raised theological problems for every commentator who attempted to read the text from the 2nd century of the Christian era forward. 4 men spent their lives trying to crack the silence. Each got a piece. None got the whole thing. The North African theologian Tyconius in the 4th century said the silence was a transitional pause between the seal sequence and the trumpet sequence about to begin. The Cappadocian bishop Andrew of Caesarea, in the late 6th to early 7th century, said the silence was modeled on the daily temple incense offering, when priests stood in silent prayer while the smoke rose. The English Benedictine Bede the Venerable in the 8th century said the silence was the deep breath before the cosmic charge, the heavenly host preparing to unleash the trumpets. The North African bishop Primasius of Hadramedum in the 6th century said the silence was the moment the prayers of the saints finally ascended to the throne to be heard and answered. These 4 patristic frameworks dominated the reading of the 7th seal silence for the next 1,000 years. But all 4 were wrong about one thing. None of them actually addressed what the immediately following verses of Revelation chapter 8 reveal about what was happening during the silence. Because Revelation chapter 8 does not stop with verse 1. Verse 2 of chapter 8 introduces something the silence interpretations had to incorporate. The text says, "And I saw the 7 angels who stand before the Most High, and to them were given 7 trumpets." The 7 trumpets that will dominate the rest of the apocalyptic vision are introduced as objects being given to the 7 angels during the half-hour of silence. The silence is not just a pause. The silence is the moment of the cosmic distribution of the trumpets that will be used to unleash the final sequence of judgments. But Revelation chapter 8, verses 3 through 5, reveals something even more specific about what is happening in the silence. Verse 3 says, "And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne." The half-hour of silence is the moment in which an 8th angel, distinct from the 7 trumpet angels, approaches the heavenly altar with a golden censer. The censer is filled with much incense. The incense is given to be offered with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. Verse 4 says, "And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended up before the Most High out of the angel hand." The smoke of the incense and the prayers of the saints ascend together. The half-hour of silence is the moment of ascending prayer. The cosmos pauses to listen to the prayers of the saints reaching the throne. The patristic interpretation that the silence was the moment of prayer ascending was correct. But verse 5 completes the structure with a detail that the patristic interpretations consistently underemphasized. Verse 5 says, "And the angel took the censer, and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake." At the end of the half-hour of silence, the angel with the censer fills the same censer that just carried the prayers up to the throne with fire from the heavenly altar, and hurls the censer down to the earth. The prayers of the saints, which had ascended in incense smoke during the silence, return to earth as fire. The cosmic transformation is precise. The saints prayed. The angel collected the prayers. The angel offered the prayers with incense. The prayers ascended to the throne. The throne accepted the prayers. The angel filled the same vessel that had carried the prayers up with fire from the altar, where the prayers had been offered. The angel hurled the fire vessel to the earth. The earth received the fire that the prayers had transformed into. The half-hour of silence was not empty time. The half-hour of silence was the period during which the prayers of the church on earth were transformed in the heavenly temple into the fire of judgment that would be unleashed on the earth. Drop silence in the comments if the prayer to fire transformation in the 7th seal silence has rewired what you understood about the mechanics of the apocalyptic judgment, because this is the part of the structure that most modern readers of the book of Revelation miss. The 7 trumpet judgments that follow in Revelation chapter 8 verses 6 and following, and that occupy the next 4 chapters of the apocalyptic narrative, are not arbitrary cosmic events. The trumpet judgments are the consequence of the fire that the angel hurled from the altar onto the earth at the end of the half-hour silence. The prayers of the saints on earth, which had been crying out for justice and vindication throughout the first 6 seals, especially in the 5th seal cry of the souls under the altar, were finally answered. The answer was the fire that became the 7 trumpets. The mechanism is theological. The saints prayed for justice. The justice they prayed for was the cosmic judgment they had been asking for since the 5th seal opening. The half-hour of silence was the moment the prayers were finally heard and answered. The answer was deferred until the silence ended. When the silence ended, the censer of prayers was inverted into the censer of fire and hurled to the earth, and the 7 trumpet judgments began. The half-hour of silence is therefore the structural hinge of the entire apocalyptic vision. Everything in the first 8 chapters of the book of Revelation flows into it. Everything in the next 13 chapters flows out of it. The silence is the cosmic moment when the prayers of the earthly saints become the fire of heavenly judgment, and the timing of the half-hour matters precisely because of the temple liturgical practice that Andrew of Caesarea identified. In the Jerusalem temple in the years before its destruction in 70 of the Christian era, the daily incense offering took approximately half an hour from the moment the priest entered the holy place with the burning coals to the moment the assembled worshippers exited the courtyard. The Mishnah tractate Tamid records the precise liturgical sequence. The priest assigned that day to the incense offering would carry the golden censer filled with burning coals from the great altar in the outer courtyard, climb the steps of the inner sanctuary, pass through the heavy embroidered veil into the holy place, approach the small golden incense altar that stood before the inner veil that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies, scatter the prescribed measure of compounded incense onto the burning coals, and stand in silent prayer while the smoke ascended through the holy place toward the cedar ceiling. In the outer courtyard, the assembled worshippers stood in complete silence during the same period, neither speaking nor moving, while the smoke of the incense rose visibly above the roof of the holy place into the morning sky over Jerusalem. The silence was held by every worshipper from the moment the priest entered the veil to the moment he re-emerged with the empty censer. The combined duration of the priestly entry, the incense scattering, the silent prayer in the holy place, and the worshipper silence in the courtyard, calculated from the Mishnah Tamid liturgical description, was approximately half an hour. The half hour was the standard duration of the incense offering, and the silent prayer that accompanied it. When the prophet John of Patmos wrote the book of Revelation in Greek for his Christian readers in the years following the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, he chose to coin a new Greek noun, ỵμιώριον, to describe exactly that half-hour duration. The cosmic silence of Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 was the heavenly equivalent of the daily temple incense silence that the original readers of the Apocalypse would have remembered from before the Roman destruction. The apocalyptic vision of John of Patmos was deliberately structured around the temple liturgical clock. The half-hour of silence in heaven matched the half-hour of silent prayer during the daily temple incense offering. The cosmic temple of the apocalyptic vision was performing the exact ritual that the earthly Jerusalem temple had performed every day until its destruction by Roman armies 25 years before John wrote his Apocalypse. The book of Revelation was telling its first-century readers that the destroyed Jerusalem temple was still operating, but in cosmic form. The earthly temple had been destroyed. The cosmic temple was eternal. The daily incense offering of the earthly temple had ended in the year 70. The eternal incense offering of the cosmic temple was continuing forever in the heavenly throne room. And the half-hour of silence in Revelation chapter 8 was the cosmic temple version of the daily temple silence that the readers of the Apocalypse would have remembered from before the Roman destruction. This is the deepest theological structure the patristic interpretations identified but did not fully spell out. The silence was temple liturgy continued in heaven after the earthly temple was destroyed. The prayers of the saints were the daily incense offering of the eternal cosmic temple. The fire from the altar was the heavenly judgment that the prayers transformed into when they reached the throne. The Christian church, reading the book of Revelation in the late 1st century and the 2nd century of the Christian era, was reading a text that was telling them their daily temple liturgy had not ended with the destruction of Jerusalem. Their daily temple liturgy had been transferred to the heavenly throne room and continued in cosmic form. Every prayer they offered ascended to the cosmic altar. Every prayer was being collected in a golden censer by an angel. Every prayer was being offered with incense before the throne. And at the appointed time, the censer of accumulated prayers would be inverted into a censer of fire and hurled back to the earth to bring the final judgment. The half-hour of silence in Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 was the cosmic clock telling the early Christians how long the prayers had been accumulating. And then we come to the part of the apocalyptic structure that the modern eschatological scholarship has only recently begun to fully appreciate, because the silence happens again and again. Every time the apocalypse turns a corner, heaven stops breathing for 30 minutes. The 7 trumpets that follow the silence are themselves structured around the same pattern of 7 judgments. Within the 7 trumpets, the 7th trumpet opens into a further sequence of 7 elements that eventually become the 7 bowls of wrath. The book of Revelation builds these recursive moments deliberately. Every time the apocalypse moves from one phase of judgment to the next, there is a moment of cosmic pause modeled on the Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 silence. What the patristic interpretations missed and what modern scholarship has identified is that the half-hour silence is not just a transitional pause. The half-hour silence is the structural template for every transitional moment in the entire apocalyptic vision. The half-hour silence is therefore the most important single verse in the entire book of Revelation from a structural perspective. It is the architectural hinge that the entire visionary structure pivots around. And the half-hour silence is also the moment when the readers of the Apocalypse are deliberately invited to participate. This is what the patristic Andrew of Caesarea liturgical interpretation most explicitly understood. The half-hour silence in heaven is the moment when the cosmic temple incense offering accepts the prayers of the earthly church. The readers of the Apocalypse are not just observing the cosmic silence, the readers are praying during it. Their prayers are the prayers of the saints that the angel is offering with the incense. Their daily prayer is the daily contribution to the censer of accumulating prayers that will, at the appointed time, be inverted into the fire of judgment and hurled to the earth. The apocalyptic vision is telling every reader of the book of Revelation that their prayer life is participating in the seventh seal silence. Every prayer the reader has ever whispered is in that censer right now, ascending in cosmic incense smoke, contributing to the fire that will eventually return as judgment. Subscribe to the Buried Testament for the apocalyptic mysteries of the New Testament. New chapter every Friday. And the half-hour silence does not actually end with the censer being hurled to the earth and the 7 trumpets being sounded, because the apocalyptic structure repeats. The 7 trumpets unfold across Revelation chapters 8 through 11. The 7th trumpet in chapter 11 verse 15 announces the final coming of the cosmic kingdom, and then the structure repeats again. Chapters 12 through 14 present the cosmic drama of the dragon and the 2 beasts and the harlot of Babylon, and the 7 bowls of final wrath. Within the 7th trumpet sequence, there is another moment of silence and incense that mirrors the original Revelation chapter 8 verse 1 silence. The fractal recursive pattern continues. Every time the apocalyptic narrative moves from one phase to the next, the half-hour silence template returns. What the half-hour silence template means for the readers of the book of Revelation, and how the recursive structure of the 7 seals opening into the 7 trumpets opening into the 7 bowls reveals the deepest pattern of how the prayers of the church on earth become the fire of judgment in heaven, is the subject of the next video on this channel. I'm going to walk you through the 7 trumpet judgments, verse by verse, to show you what each trumpet actually unleashed, to show you the specific connection between each trumpet and the original fire that was hurled from the altar at the end of the silence, and to show you the one passage in Revelation chapter 10 that, when read alongside the original chapter 8 verse 1, silence reveals the precise theological mechanism by which the apocalyptic prayers of the saints become the apocalyptic fire of judgment. The 7 trumpets that proceed from the silence each unleash a specific consequence of the fire that the angel hurled from the altar. The first trumpet in Revelation chapter 8 verse 7 causes hail and fire mingled with blood to fall on the earth, burning 1/3 of the trees and all the green grass. The second trumpet in verse 8 causes a great mountain burning with fire to be cast into the sea, turning 1/3 of the sea to blood and destroying 1/3 of the creatures and the ships. The third trumpet in verse 10 causes a great star named wormwood to fall from heaven onto the rivers and fountains of waters, making them bitter and killing the men who drank from them. The fourth trumpet in verse 12 smites 1/3 of the sun and 1/3 of the moon and 1/3 of the stars, darkening their light by 1/3. The fifth trumpet in chapter 9 releases an army of demonic locusts with stings like scorpions to torment the inhabitants of the earth for 5 months. The sixth trumpet in chapter 9 releases 200 million horsemen from beyond the Euphrates to kill 1/3 of mankind. The seventh and final trumpet in chapter 11 verse 15 announces the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of the Lord and of his Christ. Each trumpet judgment is a consequence of the fire that the angel hurled from the altar at the end of the half-hour silence. Each trumpet judgment is the specific concrete form that one portion of the accumulated prayers of the saints took when those prayers were inverted into fire and sent back to the earth. The trumpets do not exist independently of the silence. The trumpets are the direct products of the silence. Every consequence the trumpets unleash on the earth is a transformed prayer that the saints had been offering for centuries. The hail mingled with blood, the mountain burning in the sea, the star wormwood embittering the rivers, the darkening of the sun and the moon, the demonic locusts from the abyss, the 200 million horsemen from the Euphrates. Every one of these final judgments was a prayer offered by a slain Christian martyr beneath the altar in the 5th seal, ascending in incense smoke during the 7th seal silence, returning as fire when the angel hurled the censer down. This is the theological mechanism the book of Revelation builds across chapters 6 through 11. The martyrs prayed, the prayers accumulated, the censer filled, the silence allowed the censer to be offered. The fire from the altar transformed the prayers into judgment. The judgment returned to the earth as the trumpets. The trumpets executed the vindication the martyrs had asked for in the 5th seal. The 30 minutes of silence was the moment the cosmic mechanism inverted prayer into judgment. The 7 trumpets are waiting. The fire is in the censer. What the first trumpet did to the earth is next.